any questions you have as I go. We'll work on answering those as best as possible. We are in a short time frame, so I will go ahead and get started. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And today we're going to be talking about growing lettuce indoors. We got a few more participants in the waiting rooms. So yeah, we're going to be talking about growing lettuce indoors. And I should have been sharing the PowerPoint, so if you can't see that, please just give me just a message in the chat. So my name is Derek Stoll. I'm the Educational Horticultural Therapy Program Administrator for the UT Gardens, and we are offering these free series as part of funding we received from the U.S. Botanic Garden and the American Public Gardens Association. So thank you, everybody, for joining me today. So we're going to get started. So growing lettuce indoors versus outdoors. And so we're going to talk a little bit about that, what benefits there are for each, and why we might want to grow those inside versus out. And so one of the reasons is that you can grow lettuce year-round inside, obviously. And so lettuce is a cool season vegetable, so it does much better in cooler temperatures. When it gets hot and hotter in the summertime, it'll tend to become bitter quicker, mature, and also would want to bolt or go to flower and then produce seed. And so again, a lot of times in edible plants, vegetables, that when they start producing seed, they stop growing leaf material, and they're also become a little bitter. And so you want to, so growing them inside during the summer months will help. There are some lettuces that do better with warmer temperatures, and I'll talk a little bit more about resources, how to find out about specific lettuce as we go throughout. Less pest problems, and so obviously inside, hopefully we won't have a lot of pest problems. We have a greenhouse with work here at the gardens, and we do have some pests that we have to deal with in the greenhouses. But typically in your home, you're going to have less likely to have the pest might eat the lettuce. I've started planting some cool season vegetables outside of my this fall and in the last few weeks, and again, a lot of the leaves have just been chewed off by the insects that are out right now. In the springtime, when you're growing lettuce outside, you don't have as much of that because it's usually plant those out in March when there's less insects out that would be eating those. So that's one great reason to avoid pests and having to put pesticides on your lettuce. It is obviously a controlled environment. And the other thing, only downside is you need the space to grow. So you might have someone else you're living with, roommate, a spouse, partner. Sometimes you might have to bargain with them to get some more table space to put some lettuce on there if you like growing things. So that's something you need to think about, kind of where you're going to put it. We are going to go ahead and talk about what you need. So simply, you need containers, and there's different sizes of containers. There's one resource at the end of the day I'm going to discuss as far as how other things you can grow in containers. So for lettuce, you typically need something that's going to be at least 4 inches deep, minimum, and the larger container, depending on what type of lettuce you have. The head lettuces, things like iceberg and other bigger lettuces like that, will need a little bit more space to grow than some of the leaf lettuces. Soil, and so this tends to be you tend to want to use potting soil, obviously, if you're growing in containers. The native soils around, our houses are real heavy, very clay-based. You don't want to put that inside because there also is bacteria and other things in the soil might bring in. So a potting soil, potting media, is sterile, and so also is tend to be a little bit more lightweight, hold water, have a little bit of better draining properties than you would. All right, somebody asked about the slides. I'm going to try to go back and adjust that. Hold on just one second. All right, I think I reshared that. Can somebody confirm in the chat for me? Apologize for that. All right, great, thank you. So again, I'm talking about potting soil. Potting soil typically is made up of sphagnum moss, peat moss mixture with perlite. vermiculite and some other materials. You can also add compost into that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Other thing you'll need is some kind of fertilizer. You can choose inorganic or organic fertilizers, and we'll go into a little bit more detail in just a minute on that. So, and then obviously a light source, whether it's a natural light source or an artificial light source. So when we're talking about containers, we need to worry about a couple things. One is drainage, and so this is a container that I had that used to sell those at Walmart in the past, fairly inexpensive. They do have drain holes in the bottom, but they have a saucer that clips onto it, and so it doesn't drain real well. So if you overwater, it'll still kind of oversaturate your soil. So you want to have something that has holes in the bottom, and you want to have a saucer or something to collect the water at the bottom, so you don't have constant moisture in your soil and you potentially rot the roots and create other bacterial problems. Other things about containers are size, and so you can look at this one. I think is about a 12-inch, 10-inch pot. You know, so like I said, you need 4 inches deep. So anything from 4 inches up. You know, 6 to 12-inch pots are really good for lettuce, depending on, again, how many you want to put in there. And that'll depend upon when you're looking at your seeds and making choices, how far apart they say to space them. So if it says to space something 8 to 10 inches apart, you have an 8-inch or 10-inch pot. You don't want to put 2 of those in the one pot because it'll crowd that pot out. So again, we talked about soil. You want to use potting media. It's sterile. It's lighter, also lighter weight. It holds moisture, but it also allows drainage. So that some important benefits of using a potting media. And you can get that at a local garden center. I buy stuff in bulk, so I get it from Knoxville Seed and Greenhouse Supply, which is up by the zoo on I believe that's Rutledge Pike, and you can get a 3.5 cubic foot bale of the potting media there, it's basically compressed. So when you cut it open, you have to. The hard part of potting media is getting it moist. Once it's dry, it's hydrophilic, so you have to add a lot of water to get it to kind of rehydrate. So you want to make sure you do that before you plant into that potting media. You can mix your own, so a lot of people will like to buy sphagnum moss or peat moss and add in perlite, vermiculite, and compost and some other things into their soils. And so that's something you can do without a problem. Adding compost is great because it's helps add nutrients to the soil. And then you can also buy soil with fertilizer mixed in, so you don't have to worry about adding fertilizer to your plants when you're growing them. So fertilizer. So we talk about fertilizer a lot. It's a big topic. People talk a lot about organic versus inorganic fertilizers. And there are some benefits for either or. One thing, a lot of plants, particularly when leafy plants, you're going to want some nitrogen in there to help the leaves grow. And so a lot of organic fertilizers tend to have a lower nitrogen content and a higher potassium and phosphate content. So the ratios are a little different versus some of the other inorganic fertilizers you get. One of the issues that so I use, compost is a great addition, a soil amendment that does have nutrients added to your plants. And one product I use a lot around is this black cow, and it's a composted manure. And the reason I use that is it's a really, it's a 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. So it's a real even straight across the line, nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, nutrients in there. The other thing is composted, so it doesn't tend to smell. It doesn't smell like manure, and that's one of the problems with organic fertilizers that I find is a lot of the organic fertilizers, particularly liquid-based ones, tend to have a little bit of smell. So, for example, we use a product in the gardens called Neptune's Harvest, and it's a fish kelp seaweed mixture. So it's liquefied, it's concentrated. You only need like 1 or 2 tablespoons per gallon. So, and we buy it in a 5-gallon jug, a 5-gallon bucket. So it's fairly economical, lasts a while. The main downside, obviously, is the cost of that, and or not the cost, but the smell. And so the smell of it smells like fish. So you don't necessarily want to be getting that, mixing it up and putting that on your lettuces that you're going to eat and haven't grown those inside your house, or else, because it's going to have a little bit of stench as you do that. Another liquid fertilizer I found at a garden center, had a manure in it, and I opened it up just to kind of smell it, and it smells like manure, pretty strong. So again, you don't want that in your house. You don't want those smells in your house. So you know, if you're looking at doing a liquid fertilizer, obviously the inorganic fertilizers don't have as much of a smell. You can also look for hydroponic supply fertilizers that are liquid, because there are some organic hydroponic systems that you can use, and you can get that fertilizer. And so, and again, I would, as you're selecting a liquid fertilizer, you might just want to check with the company you're working with. So hydroponic systems, there's a couple in Knoxville. One that around the area, it's called Innovative Hydroponic Supply. They're down in Maryville. So if you want to stop by there, give them a call and ask about what kind of you know, liquid fertilizer would be good that doesn't have a lot of smell, or so for growing something inside, you know, they could give you a couple solutions or suggestions for that. So light sources. So it's important to know that light sources can help your plants grow better. You know, obviously vegetables need about 6 hours of light. Indirect light often causes plants to grow what they call leggy. And this is a photo on the right here at the top, is some lettuce we're growing in our greenhouse. So this is our greenhouse. We've got a lot of light in the greenhouse. We still have a little bit of problem with it growing. Some of it's in this particular lettuce, and I don't remember the specific name. We started it for another project, but it's in a small pot, so it needs to be in a bigger pot, but also it's a little leggy because of some of the indirect light, even in the greenhouse. Now, and how this works is, you know, plants have hormones called auxin, and that hormone breaks down on the sunny side of plants, and so which means it stays in existence on the shadier side, and that auxin causes plant growth, and so it causes that plant to grow towards the light. And so you've all experienced that probably if you've ever planted bulbs, particularly amaryllis bulbs. You have to kind of turn them as you go. So if you do not use overhead light inside, you're going to have to probably turn your lettuce on a regular basis. You want to get a window at preferably south facing to get as much light as possible, similar to growing any kind of indoor plant you might have. Artificial light, obviously that's going to add some cost to your production, but two main ones, you know, the fluorescent lighting is kind of what we've used a lot in the past, and now LED lights are kind of becoming more commonplace, and also saves on energy costs. To do lights, you're going to need to have overhang, have something to hang that on, and you want those lights placed as close to the plants as possible and move them up as they grow, and that gives them as much direct light and take as much energy from that light and then they're not going to grow leggy. So LED lights, they do save energy. There's research now that we found that red and blue lights improve the actual nutritional value of plants. So for vegetables, having the red and blue wavelengths help them have more nutrients in them as they grow. The cost for these LEDs vary, and I'll show a couple examples. This photo down on the right is of Carl Sams. He's one of our professors here on campus, and he does research with growing inside in hydroponic systems. If you've ever been to the gardens in the early morning or in the evening when it starts getting dark, and there's a central greenhouse right next to the parking lot, you'll notice the red and blue LED lights in there, and so that's some of his research. This photo is actually in their pod, which is basically a semi-trailer that they have converted to a hydroponic system. And the lights, if you're looking at it, looks like purple, but they have red and blue. So obviously you mix those two colors together, you get purple. And so you can see the rows up and down of the vegetables that they have growing in there. And he's measuring, trying to determine, is it cost effective to grow like this? And the idea is to take these tractor trailers and put them in urban settings and in cities where they can grow a lot of produce and have fresh produce provided for people at a cost effective way. But again, LED lights are becoming more commonplace for growing inside. So here's a couple examples. On the right is a company I use a lot. I get a lot of bulk orders, some pots and containers for what I do. This is a $1,500 light. Obviously, I wouldn't suggest that for home growing, but it is an example of kind of the more expensive, and it probably has a lot more. I didn't see the size of it when I was looking real quick, but it's probably a little bit bigger than what you need. On Amazon, they've got this one for $21. Again, you'll see $20 to $100 or so per light. I've not tried any of these. I'm actually going to probably try to buy one of the cheaper ones to see how it works, doing some microgreens and explore that. But again, the LED is a great way to go, a great choice. A lot of fluorescent light systems tend to get hot, so you got to make sure there's space around them so they can cool, versus LEDs tend to not be as hot too, so it's a little less of a fire hazard. Sowing your seeds. So when you're sowing your plants, you can sow directly in the containers you want to grow them in, and so you can sow those. Typically, you will follow directions on the back of most of the seeds, but for lettuce seeds, typically a quarter to half inch. Place them on the soil and then cover with about a quarter to half inch of soil. You do need to water those regularly. In about 7 days, you'll start seeing some germination from those and start sprouting out of the soil. So again, you can sow these in containers that you want to grow or plant in, or you could potentially sow these and transplant them in later. So again, you want to thin them after you sow them. So if you're growing at home, you can try to put 2 or 3 seeds in a place and space them out real well and do that. But if you do sow more than you need, you can thin them. Typically, when you see 2 or 3 of the true, 3 to 4 of the true leaves, and so most when you grow a seed, you'll start seeing what they say the first set of leaves that are emerging from the plant. Usually, they don't look like the mature leaves of the plant. And once you start seeing, and there's usually like 2 of those, obviously for lettuce, and once you start seeing the other leaves start developing, then you can go ahead and transplant or thin those out. Spacing is going to depend upon the lettuce, and we'll talk about some of the different lettuces in just a minute. So romaines and butterhead lettuces, you want to place about 6 to 8 inches apart. Leaf lettuce is about 4 inches apart, and then head lettuce is about 10 to 12 inches apart. So choosing lettuce, some of this is going to be personal preference, obviously kind of what taste you like. There are some lettuces and leafy greens that you can get that tend to be a little bit more bitter than others, and some people like that. I tend to like the sweeter lettuces, and I'll talk about some of the ones we have planted that these are ones that I bought and grow at home also. So color, you can get, just the traditional kind of green leaves. They have some that have red color leaves and some other, just to make it, can add color to your dish or your plate when you're eating the lettuce. And then they also, a lot of these now that are new cultivars are developing that are disease resistant. Inside the home is not going to be as much of a problem. Outside, downy mildew and those types of things are diseases that are common among some vegetables. And so some of the lettuces are more resistant that way. So if you do want to grow in home and you have space outside, you can also try to find the disease resistant ones so you have better chance also growing outside with those. So these are some lettuces that I've grown before and I've liked. I like the flavor of them. I like how they grow. First one is this flashy trout back. This is, and I did purchase these at Johnny's Seeds online. I'll go through the seed companies in just a little bit where you can get some. And so you see on the left, that's kind of what the mature lettuce will look like. And on the right, this is what we have growing in a greenhouse. These are about 4 or 5 inches maybe up now. And I sowed those seeds on August 24th. And so that gives you, it's just a little under a month, you get them about that size. The maturity date for these are 27 to 55 days. I have not fertilized these at all, and so I've not really added anything to them, just using the potting media. I may have fertilized them maybe once in the whole process of growing those. Next one is green butter. Again, I think these are kind of have a buttery sweetness flavor to them. Their maturity day is about 55. This one is downy mildew resistant. Again, it's not going to be much of a problem inside if you're growing inside, but if you do decide to grow some outside, it's a good choice. And again, on the left is your full-size lettuce, and then on your right is the what I grew again on August, sowed those on August 28th. And I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4. So I would need to thin those out as it gets a little bigger potentially. Summer Crisp, this is a Cherokee variety and it has a red flavor, or I'm sorry, red color. The maturity is about 48 days. Not as sweet as other Summer Crisp ones, but it adds a lot of color and a lot of pretty color to your food. So And on the right, this is what I have labeled as that, and I don't know if I've not grown this one before, so I'm not sure if it gets more red as it grows or I actually mislabeled it, which is a possibility too, because I do that every once in a while. So, but again, about 3 to 4. This is about 4 inches or so tall after about a month of growing without adding any fertilizer to the soils. So it's important to know as you're growing these things, keep them watered. You don't want to overwater them. You also don't want to underwater them. So you don't, if you get to the point where the soil looks dry or it starts pulling apart from the pot, you're going to probably you definitely need to add water. I would keep it a little bit wet than that. Some house plants you grow, you do want them to dry out in between where you kind of see that. Lettuces you want to keep a little more moist. In our greenhouse, we have misting systems, and one of the problems I have with that is they come on and they're set, every hour they'll come on for 20 seconds, or we can change those times, but a lot of times because of that there's a constant moisture, and we'll get some little green mildew or something growing on the top of the soil. Doesn't harm the plant necessarily, but it's just a little too much water. Another thing just to quickly talk about with this particular photo is I sowed them in a tray, and this is a 10-inch by 10-inch tray, and it's about 2 inches, maybe 3 inches deep. And so one thing you can do is you can grow lettuces like this, and if you just want to have the kind of what they call, these are a little bit bigger than microgreens, maybe about baby green size, you could harvest those right now and make a small salad with that. You obviously, these are a little bit bigger than you would have transplanted them when they're a little bit smaller than this, but again, you could harvest those and have those as a small salad right now, as they would be ready to do that. So harvesting. So I want to make sure it's important when you harvest. It's good to have a good pair of kitchen scissors that are sharp. Pruners aren't going to work for these. The lettuce leaves are not. They're a little bit softer than other types of plants, so scissors work better. You do want to harvest when they're full size if you're trying to get as much lettuce as possible, but just before the maturity. As they mature, and once they mature, plants want to start going to flower and going to seed, and that's when it becomes a little bit more bitter. So just as it gets big, but not before it goes past that maturity time. If you're outside, particularly harvesting in the morning is important. It's a better time of the day to harvest so they don't get wilty as quick. If you wait to the afternoon when it's really hot, they're going to wilt real quick when you quicker when you cut them, and they won't look as good. Once you harvest them, you can keep in a refrigerator and plastic for a plastic bag for up to 10 days. Obviously, you're growing at home. My suggestion is to grow it until you need it, and then harvest it, have it fresh. It'll taste better, and then you don't have to worry about storing that. You can get leaf lettuces, and these leaf lettuces you can actually cut and they can keep growing. You do want to cut the outer leaves only, about 1 inch above the crown, right by the crown. And the crown, which is kind of the center of the growing point, it'll keep growing, and you can cut those leaves that are about 3 to 6 inches long. Another thing you can do with lettuces, instead of growing to full maturity, is use those as part of a microgreen mix. In this photo, I don't think I have any lettuces planted, but microgreens are simply sowing seeds and harvest them in 7 to 14 days before they get their true leaves. So these are the kind of the cotyledon, the first leaves that come out. And so lettuces are good to grow microgreens like that too. Obviously, you don't need 4 inches of soil for microgreens. You only use about a ½ inch. We have a video online that we did a few weeks ago about microgreens to get more details. This is just a photo of some radishes and basil. So microgreens with lettuces, you can mix them with some other things to add some different flavors, and you can have a small little microgreen salad with that, or put it on a sandwich or something. Again, another way to get fresh. You can grow these year-round too, just like lettuces inside. So sources of seed. So obviously local garden centers are an excellent source for seed. Tend to go to like a big box store. You're going to get very much a lot of the similar seeds like romaine, iceberg, some specific green leaf lettuces. The neat thing about going online is you have the ability to kind of look and see and explore some more details about the seeds. These are a few seed companies that we've used over the past. Johnny Seeds is an organic company. They have a whole section on lettuces, probably too many to choose from. It can get a little confusing or a little overwhelming to look at, but You can look at different categories, romaines, leaf lettuce, Bibb lettuces, and green lettuces and color. Burpee also has some lettuce, has a lettuce section. Seedsavers.org is a heirloom seed company, and so again, they have a great lettuce selection. Park Seed does some organic and I think maybe organic seeds, and then Rare Seeds is another heirloom seed company. So again, even if you want to buy from a local garden center, you can do that, and you can go online and look around and see what you want, and then when you go to the store, you know what you're looking for. The great thing about going online is you get the photos, you get more details about flavors, and if they say they're bitter, they're going to be bitter. So if you don't like the kind of bitter flavor lettuces, you want to leave those out of your selection. All right, so we're about finished for today. Again, we make these a little short so everybody has time to watch these. But I do want to thank everybody for coming. We do want to thank the U.S. Botanic Garden for and the American Public Garden Association, who helped provide funding for this workshop series, and also helping support our kitchen garden, where we're growing produce to donate to the local food pantries. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. I'll answer those. At the end, I'm going to upload this video to YouTube, and then I'm going to then we'll also send you an email with a link if you'd like to. If you could go fill that survey out, that would help us a little bit with reporting back to the organizations that gave us the funding for this. Someone said collecting seeds. So you can collect seeds if you let your lettuce, but to do that, you're going to have to let your lettuce grow past and flower and turn to seed. So sometimes you can leave those out, and if you have, that probably won't be easy to do if you're growing indoors, obviously, because you're going to have the lettuce is going to have to get bigger, and you're going to have more time. But outside, certainly you can collect the seeds and replant them. Just remember, every seed we get that you do from that, your seeds will, what you grow is not going to be the exact same as what you had before. It'll be something different because of the pollination of those flowers to create some kind of hybrid. Someone said they liked high mowing seeds. So that's another company to look for. And then can you grow indoor? So yes, you can grow indoor all year round. Obviously in the winter months, December, January, you might need a little bit of alternate light, but I grow microgreens, and then lettuces you can grow inside too, year round. So I do want to thank everybody. One other resource is right here, and this is, I don't know if it'll be clickable, but if you type in vegetable and herb gardening in containers, Cornell, and it lists different things you can grow in containers and what size of container you need for it. And that could be something, even if you want to have a deck or live in an apartment and you have some outside space but don't have in-ground beds, containers work. I've been successful with potatoes, green peppers this summer work really well, and tomatoes. Those obviously you're not going to be able to grow inside. You don't have enough space for that. But a good outside deck garden with containers would be great. It works well. So, and that resource kind of tells you what size you need for what plant. So once again, thank everybody for coming today. And we have one more in this series. It will be, I believe, next week. And all these series have been online. So if you missed any of them, you can go back online and review those other workshops that we've provided for this project.
Thanks, Derek.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Derek. I appreciate it.
Thank you.